Hi, so welcome back to the next module in the Rescu Academy, Reignite Your Relationship. This is a very important module because we're going to be talking about anger and jealousy, two rather different emotions but coming from the same primal, primitive part of us. I will teach you how to recognize what is going on for you and share some very powerful dialogues and insights that will transform your relationship with anger and jealousy. Anger is one of the most basic human emotions. It is a physical and mental response to a threat and to harm done in the past. Anger takes many different forms, from irritation to blinding rage, or resentment that festers over many years. Some say that they get a bubble of rage and go wild. You may feel like crying because you don't know how to control yourself, and it happens so quickly. If you're jealous, you are also likely to feel the unpleasant physical sensations. It eats at you. It causes you to get so angry and overanalyze everything that each corner of your mind can possibly create. Most of it is conjured up in imagination and doesn't even exist. You're playing your own tricks on yourself. Jealousy can swallow you up and take you over completely to the point where you look in the mirror and don't even know who you are anymore. But despite the overwhelming and irrational thoughts that accompany the green-eyed monster and the overwhelming rages of anger, it is possible to recognize them, tame them, and get over them. In this module, we're aiming to help you to learn some of the techniques that will enable you to get a grip on yourself. You just have to think again that we are just animals with clothes on, and most of our quickest and most instinctive behaviors stem from the primitive part of our brain and are concerned with basic survival and protection. With anger, there's very little conscious thought, actually none, that goes into becoming angry. It can happen in a heartbeat. One minute you're having a peaceful dinner and suddenly it turns into a shouting match. You both see red, both your heart levels raise, and things quickly spiral out of control. This is normal. It's normal. It happens to all couples, even those who are skilled at using the Imago dialogue and other techniques. There is a moment, a really small moment, when your autonomous nervous system takes over and you are acting from impulse. It's like you're out of control. But what distinguishes an unconscious couple from a conscious one, and a relationship that is in difficulty from a healthy one, is how you manage ruptures caused by anger and jealousy, and how quickly you can overcome them. How to stop anger in its tracks. The first thing to do, for both of you to do, is to take a moment. I know this can be hard in the heat of the moment, but if you discuss it in advance, you can have a hand signal like that, perhaps, or a word or phrase that means you need to take some time to calm down. Use the 7-11 breathing technique that we learned in the last module. Breathe in for the count of 7 and out for the count of 11. It will calm your nervous system and engage your forebrain. Do 2 or 3 rounds of that. It only takes a couple of minutes and you can think more clearly, you can rationalize and use your memory. Immediately the atmosphere will seem calmer and you'll both be able to resolve the issues. Even if your partner is still angry, one person can do the 7-11 breathing and it can have a calming effect on you both. You can try and discuss the matter that's flipped you out. Once you're conscious of what's going on for you, you can recognize the triggers and the underlying emotions. The experience of anger can range from mild irritation and frustration all the way to seething rage. As a matter of fact, even boredom is a mild version of anger in the form of dissatisfaction with what is happening. We know that anger, in its various forms from mild irritation to seething, blind, seeing red rage, is a top-level emotion. This means that underlying it can be other emotions, often primarily fear. It is necessary to work out what's underneath the anger in order to deal with it properly, at a deep level from where it begins. So you need to pause, check in with yourself and see if you can identify the primary emotion that is driving the anger. Sometimes it's hard to notice anything but the anger, but we do have the Imago dialogue on anger that may help you here, and we're going to attach it to this module. The problem is that even once we've identified the underlying fear or emotion, it can take some time to shift the instinctive response behavior because it will have become an ingrained habit. It's most likely that you've been behaving in this way for a long time, and so is your partner. You can both trigger each other into this behavior, and it was learned early in life. This is the point when many couples throw in the towel, citing their arguments as the reason this relationship is not going to work, but that's the big mistake that some couples make, because nothing has really been resolved, and your next relationship will take you right back to the beginning again. In order to make progress with the work of healing and growing yourself, you need to stick with it, continue the work together, and notice how your partner and you become more aware and more conscious in this relationship. You will find a conversation script attached, this time one for anger, and we're going to use Jack and Jill to demonstrate it. As in previous videos when we've used the dialogue process, the first thing to do is to ask your partner for a time to discuss what went on in the argument. They have permission to say no, provided they make a time within 24 hours. It's better to talk about the argument, not the contents of the argument. That doesn't really get you anywhere, and it certainly doesn't get to the underlying emotions. As the sender, the one who asks for the discussion, you start by sending a short message about what happened for you during the angry episode. You may have felt scared or defensive or fearful of abandonment maybe. Sometimes you really have to take time to get deeply into your core self to discover what your deeper feeling was. And your partner as receiver will help by asking, "Is there more?" several times. Take your time, allow space for deep emotions to rise up. Speak them to your partner and allow your partner to mirror you, correcting them if they get it wrong. What we seek to do, once we are calm and able to reflect on the feelings that the surface irritation is triggering, is to be able to say, "What that reminds me of from my childhood is the time when." It may be clear, such as the time a parent died, or your parents divorced, or you moved house, or had some other major event happen. But for many people, especially those who report that their childhoods were wonderfully, sublimely happy and perfect, will find it more difficult. It will be there, somehow, although for some people it is a case of joining the dots. That's why working with the therapist is recommended. You may have had a happy childhood, but you remember mum as being quite strict and controlling. As children, it is vital for us to be loved and protected by our primary caregivers. So if mum was strict and controlling, you will have developed ways, which we call adaptations, to protect yourself and maintain a relationship with mum, where she will continue to care for you. The last thing a child wants is to be rejected by the tribe or family, so they will become quiet or boisterous or studious or caring or whatever it was that mum praised. Or at the same time, they will hide that part of them that she finds annoying, such as our creative side, our loud side, our clever side, or our funny side. So even for the most perfect childhoods, there will have been something that caused you to protect yourself. It may be something that happened at kindy, such as being left out of games or being teased and humiliated. Having sown the seed for the wound, any time anything similar happens, the wound will be deepened. We become hypersensitive around that wound, and our brain looks for times it might have happened, even if it has not. It looks for times when it's happening now. So think very hard, try very, very hard to think when you had a similar feeling when you were a youngster. It may have been as a teenager or even as an early adult, but it's most likely to have been in your childhood. Remember, if you are someone who tends to cling and you tend to keep your feelings in and you deny your needs and have rigid self-boundaries, you're probably a minimizer, a turtle, who was wounded at the attachment stage, and this behaviour was what pleased your parent. Or if you are someone who tends to let feelings out, exaggerate your emotions, and are generally compulsively open, you're probably a maximizer, a hailstormer, and this is the behaviour that your parents would have preferred. Because your parents liked it when you behaved like that, these become your adaptations. A full list of characteristics of each is attached. Have your partner continue to mirror you back and keep asking you, "Is there more?" until there is none. It's important to take your time over the process and not rush when nothing appears to come to mind. I mean, give each other considerable space, at least a minute, to really come to the end of recovering their memories. Then say how you used to protect yourself as a child, perhaps by going to your room, being a show-off, being a good student, or goofing around and making people laugh. This is most likely the way you continue to protect yourself now as an adult and will seem familiar to your partner. My advice, always with these kinds of dialogues, is first to map it out and then have a dialogue. Now we'll see Jack and Jill go through a conversation about Jill's anger and see Jack respond.